Well, good day. Um, this is a Defense of Liberty seminar titled Money in the Market. My name is John Deming, and if you'd like to get a hold of me, you can use this email, but make sure you put Defense of Liberty in the subject line so it doesn't go into a spam folder. Also, if you're interested in what we talk about in these Defense of Liberty seminars, or you want more information about a particular topic, I'd ask that you go to this site here at the bottom. This site, my brother and I have been developing over quite a period of time here. There's a lot of links, clickable links, to give more information so that you can look at an issue. We've tried to do some research on a variety of issues, and then you can go out from there and get more information to help you make your own decisions. So I think it's appropriate to talk about how I got here. I started teaching high school in 1997, and my dad, who was a longtime educator, both in the high school and also an assistant principal and coach as well. He said when I started teaching that I was poorer than he was when he started, and he didn't say that a lot, but he did say it once in a while, and it was really hard for me to understand. I didn't really understand what he was talking about at the time. My wife and I were married in 2001, and we seemed to have more money coming in, but the money didn't seem to go as far as it used to. And so these things were in my mind, and I began to search for answers to these, just to see if my perception and my father's perceptions were actually correct. So what I'd like you to do is keep that in mind as I go through these topics. So generally in the Defense of Liberty series, we'll go through a topic, and then we'll have time for discussion, and then come back and talk about another topic, and then more discussion. So in the Money in the Market series, we're going to talk about inflationary policy and how the market functions and why it doesn't. So, most people understand inflation to mean the natural rise in prices over time, right? So, the prices are being inflated, if you want to say it that way. A lot of people think of it that way. But I think the real question is, what causes the prices to go up over time? If you think about it, the production of a particular good should become more efficient over time. Using better technology or fewer hours to produce it, something like that, should become more efficient. And so that should reduce costs. It could also lead to an increased supply of that commodity, and therefore that would also reduce costs. So that's something that the production should get better over time, and so you would think that prices would come down. But another thing that could happen is if the value of the dollar goes down, then it's going to take more dollars to buy the same commodity, the same good, as it used to. So, that's another place that could cause prices to go up. So now the question is, how does the dollar lose value? Well, one of the easiest ways to think about dollar devaluation is simply to increase the supply of dollars, if they print more money. If you make more money available in the economy, then there's more dollars available, and so the value of any $1 tends to go down. So let's think about inflation for a minute. Here's some perspective. If you think back to the example with my father saying that he felt like he had more money than I did when I started teaching. When he became a teacher in 1949, his first contract was for $3,200. I became a teacher in 1997. Now, if you look at my dad's contract and just say, okay, if I just keep up with inflation, I don't make any more relative to inflation than my dad, I just make the same amount, I would have had to have been paid $21,407. But I was only being paid on that first contract, $18,100. And so my dad was right. I made a lot more money than he did. I was making 18,100 and he was making only 3,200. But I was less wealthy. My money didn't go as far as it used to. And so this is one of the really striking causes of the shrinking middle class. A lot of people talk about, well, there's a shrinking middle class and where's it going? This is one of the really big causes, is that inflation is taking away our property in a sense, because it's devaluing our money. Now, it's important here to talk about wealth and money differently. They're not synonyms, right? Our wealth, we want to protect our wealth, and the money inflation or deflation causes changes in that resource or that property that we call money. So when you think about it, if inflation's occurring and our money is being systematically devalued, could we view that as a tax? And that seems kind of a stretch, I think, for a lot of people. But the Federal Reserve, it prints more money, and nowadays they don't necessarily have to print more money. All they have to do is type a few keystrokes on a computer and just put more dollars on the books at particular banks and computer-wise. But in any event, if the amount of dollars in the economy go up, the value of those dollars go down. This is what I said earlier. And so that devaluation of the dollar makes citizens pay more for goods and services. Now, the wages aren't keeping up with inflation at this point. And so, if you think about it, if your wages aren't going up as fast as inflation is, there's a net loss of income. You're becoming less wealthy. And so my argument is that this should be viewed as a tax, an inflation tax. I think it's important here to point out that if we think of this inflation as a tax, I think a lot of people will address it differently. So let's look at some quotes, because it does seem a little bit maybe kind of coming from the fringe for somebody to call inflation a tax. But a Nobel Prize winning economist, Milton Friedman, said, inflation is the one form of taxation that can be imposed without legislation. Notice the Federal Reserve can increase the money supply and then inflate the money supply, and then you cause dollar devaluation. So that would be a form of taxation that's imposed without legislation, because the Federal Reserve isn't part of the legislative branch. Chairman Bernanke, the Federal Reserve Chairman, just in July of 2008, was testifying before Congress, and he was asked about inflation as a tax. Could it be viewed as a tax? And he said, "Congressman, I couldn't agree with you more that inflation is a tax." So this is important to understand, that even the Federal Reserve Chairman argues that it's a tax, and he and his colleagues are the ones that are left